Hi, I'm Suresh. I'm the founder of Shasta.com Incorporated, started in 1998. And you can also reach me on suresh.co.in. So today's topic is of interest to a lot of domain name investors, whether it's .com, but today specifically I'm going to talk about .in and also include as .co.in. Now, I've been through the .com years, the late 90s, early 2000s, late 2000s, and then now in 2025. Domain names, today I'm talking specifically about descriptive generic words. So these are really domains that are not trademarkable. So these are like common words that like cars, shoes, furniture, software. So you get the point. These are not brand names at all. So when you talk about valuations of these kinds of words for .com, it went through an era in the late 90s when things were being sold for $5,000, $10,000, these kinds of one-word domain names. And then about mid 2000s, they jumped to six figures. So they went from what I call five figures, $5,000 to $10,000, to six figures by mid 2000 to late 2000s. And many of those one-word domain names today are seven figures to eight figures. So $1 million plus to $10 million plus domain names. Obviously, these are not the two-word domain names or the three-word domain names. These are usually one-word domains that define a whole category of products or services that are huge, right? So it can be correlated. It can be related to products that are multi-billion dollar products worldwide. And so, in terms of .in, the question really is how do you exactly value these domain names, right? Because it's not a straightforward equation to value these domains. And in real estate, for example, you can probably value them based on current sales, right? Typically, you go to buy a place in India, a flat or a land, you can figure out what the price is per square foot in that area. And then typically, you look at multiple sales and you can figure out what the price is for that particular area. In India, again, it's all, area, cities, locations within cities, so it's all over the place, right? But you do know the premium locations and the valuations based on past sales. With .in domain names, it's a bit more complex because a lot of sales are not public. So there isn't a good amount of public data for these premium domain names. Okay, so how do you actually come up with this? So this is where, I'm proposing, this is just my thought, which is you price the domain names roughly 5 to 10% of .com. The reason being, you can ask me why. Why can't it be 50% of .com or 25% of .com? Well, if you ask that, then for example, .co.uk domains and .de domains, there is some data showing they've sold at roughly 25% of .com. So it is a possibility for .in to get there. But I'm just saying 5 to 10% today based on what I've seen in terms of the progress of India, in terms of the GDP, but not only GDP, individual products and services, how big the market is in India, and the potential for it to grow, right? So if a domain name defines a certain product, then, like for example, Ayurveda or yoga or, computer, electronics, these are all one-word domain names defines a whole industry or category. And if those things are multi-billion dollar markets in India, and in terms of a global market, it's 10% of the global market, then that is one factor to look into in how you price your domain names. So as you can see, there is no consensus of these domain names will be priced. It will be between the seller and the buyer and the agreement they come to. But it is an interesting question for many domain investors. And I'm sure those who want to buy domain names for their business, they have to do their own calculations. and how much this domain is worth to them, right? So there's multiple ways of doing it. You can do it from the seller standpoint, and the buyer has to do their own due diligence, for example. So I'm just throwing this out there as a point of discussion and a point of topic for people to understand. There are multiple levels of domain names, and they go in higher quality in terms of what those domains mean for the category and whether they are shorter, one word versus two word versus three word domain names. So the range could be as much as a few $1,000s. If it's 5 to 10% of .com, it could be a few $100s, few $1,000s, few tens of $1,000s, and it could be a few $100,000s. So again, thank you for listening, and I know this discussion will continue. This is not the end of it, so thank you for listening.